41,923. That's not a population count. That's not a lottery number. That's a number of alleged predators reportedly roaming Britain's streets right now, according to recent media coverage. And they are not hiding in shadows. They are out in the open, while sex crimes spike, public protests erupt, and the government shrugs from behind closed doors. Right now, a sexual assault is happening every 7 minutes in the UK, and a growing chunk of those crimes, with tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now. It's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles the mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting. According to the report, are being linked to foreign nationals. The coverage claims a 62% rise in sex offenses committed by foreigners, raising fears and blood pressure in equal measure. It's not just the numbers, it's what they represent. For a country like Britain, already dealing with housing crises, strained public services, and waves of migration, these statistics hit differently. Because this time, the public isn't quietly scrolling. They're outside, furious. Parents are rallying, protesting, marching, shouting into megaphones that enough is enough, that their daughters aren't safe walking home, that the system meant to protect them has chosen politics over people. And the anger, it's not just about the crimes. It's about who's letting them happen, and why. Let's talk about the SDS-40 scheme. You may not have heard of it before, but according to critics, it's at the center of this outrage. The policy allegedly enables large-scale migration without proper vetting, described by some as a deliberate political strategy to engineer future voting demographics. Yes, you heard that right. Accusations are flying that the government is importing future voters at the cost of national security, that they are flooding the country with unvetted arrivals to secure long-term political dominance, while telling everyone it's about compassion and diversity. Meanwhile, police forces are stretched so thin, they're retreating from high-crime zones. Entire communities say they've been abandoned. The justice system, heavily criticized for releasing foreign offenders early or refusing to deport them altogether. One glaring accusation, that government departments are suppressing demographic data from crime reports to avoid backlash. That people aren't getting the full picture. And when they do get it, it's often too late, after someone else's life has been torn apart. Critics aren't mincing words. They are saying this isn't just incompetence, it's betrayal. A betrayal of safety, of sovereignty, of the basic agreement between citizen and state. And they are not the only ones talking. Former U.S. President Donald Trump weighed in recently, slamming Britain's border failures and calling for American-style deportation tactics. He pointed to ICE, claiming it deported over 800,000 illegal migrants, while Britain, under Starmer's leadership, has done the opposite. Instead of tightening borders, reports say the UK is housing migrants in taxpayer-funded hotels, some of which have become flashpoints for violent altercations. The optics? Not great. Elderly citizens struggling to pay heating bills while alleged criminals are fed and sheltered in comfort. And it gets worse. We're talking violent clashes, reports of migrants fighting authorities, videos circulating of overwhelmed police units backing away, law enforcement that's either too understaffed or too restricted by red tape to act. This is where the protests turn personal. Fathers forming neighborhood patrols, mothers installing trackers on their children's phones, communities setting up underground networks to distribute banned self-defense tools. Why? Because, according to them, the system no longer protects them. The government's answer? Blame it on international law, human rights obligations, bureaucratic hurdles, things that conveniently tie their hands behind their backs while the chaos escalates. Critics aren't buying it. They are calling these procedural constraints nothing more than calculated weaknesses, choices disguised as legal necessities. Because when you zoom out, the narrative gets clearer. This isn't about random failure. This is about systemic neglect. The early release of violent offenders, the refusal to deport, the blackout on offender backgrounds in official reports, the tolerance of disorder in the name of political optics. These are choices. And when people call it a national security failure, they are not exaggerating. They are watching their neighborhoods change, their rights shrink, their trust in institutions dissolve. It's not just about who's here. I know things feel really heavy in the UK right now. There's a lot of division and noise on the streets, but I want this channel to be a place where we can come together. If you want to be part of a supportive community, please subscribe and like this video to show some love to everyone feeling anxious about the state of things right now. Stay safe out there, everyone. It's about why they are here and what's not being done when they commit crimes. This growing unrest is now being labeled by some as a red alert, not declared by the government, but by the public. Because when 40,000 plus predators are on the streets and the system is paralyzed by political correctness, citizens start doing the math. You can't tell people we're doing all we can while also preventing deportations, while releasing known criminals, while restricting their ability to defend themselves. There's a reason why terms like sovereignty erosion and demographic engineering are no longer just fringe talking points. They are being echoed by former officials, journalists, and everyday people watching their city spiral. And the idea that policies are intentionally designed to produce demographic shifts that favor the ruling party, that turns public anger into pure outrage. Because it suggests this isn't a bug. It's a feature. That rising crime, collapsing trust, and social disintegration are simply collateral damage in the pursuit of political power. What used to be an immigration debate is now a national identity crisis. At the heart of it is a very simple, haunting question. Who is this country for? Critics say it's not for the families protesting, not for the women afraid to walk home, not for the pensioners scraping by while hotel bills skyrocket for alleged offenders. It's for optics, for votes, for power. They point to the burning migration centers, to the violence, to the silence of leadership, and they are calling it out for what they believe it is, willful neglect. This isn't just a policy failure. It's a total collapse of the social contract. What happens when the public starts defending themselves because they believe the state won't? When parents stop trusting the police and start patrolling parks? When faith in justice disappears? You don't get a peaceful society. You get vigilante justice. You get fear. You get fragmentation. You get a nation that no longer feels like a nation. At this point, even experts are calling for urgent reform. Mass deportation units, a reset of international obligations, a reassertion of national security over feel-good narratives, because what's unfolding isn't just a political scandal. It's a societal unraveling. The numbers say it, the streets show it, the people feel it, and every day it continues. Every assault that could have been prevented, every protest ignored, just drives the wedge deeper. If something doesn't change soon, if leadership keeps choosing silence over safety, if political agendas stay prioritized over public protection, then this won't just be a crisis. It'll be a turning point. If you're watching this and thinking, how did it get this bad? You're not alone. But the real question is, how much worse does it have to get before someone actually does something? Let us know your thought below. What do you think is behind the government's refusal to act decisively? Do you believe public safety has been sacrificed for political gain? And how far is too far? If you want more breakdowns like this, where we dig past the headlines and talk about what's really going on, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and share this with someone who needs to know the full story. Stay aware, stay sharp, stay safe. And if you're still here, that probably means you're wondering, where does this actually end? Because once you start peeling back the layers, it's not just about crime statistics or overcrowded hotels. It's about trust, broken, abandoned, maybe even irreparable. When parents are walking their kid to school you've seen the headlines, but the atmosphere down here is completely different. Subscribe so you don't miss the raw footage I'm releasing later this week, and like this video to help push this unfiltered reporting up the algorithm. Pepper spray tucked in their coats. Illegal. By the way, it's not just precaution. It's a symptom, a signal that faith in public protection is gone. When mothers in towns like Rotherham, Rochdale, and Telford are the ones holding rallies instead of holding answers, that silence from the top, it's deafening. Let's not sugarcoat it. The rage isn't just brewing, it's boiling over. What started as local protests is turning into a national movement. People waving signs with their children's names. People demanding names, numbers, answers. And still, no real acknowledgement from leadership. Not even a coherent plan. Just vague promises and recycled excuses. And look, nobody is denying that migration is a complex issue. But this isn't about refugees fleeing war. This is about the system knowing there are dangerous individuals slipping through the cracks and doing nothing. This is about allowing known predators to stay in the country because deportation might breach their human rights, while the rights of the victims get brushed under the rug. The outrage isn't baseless. It's backed by visible failure. Early release programs, still running. Deportation figures, embarrassingly low. And the SDS-40 scheme, widely slammed for its alleged role in demographic manipulation, is still in place. Every time officials are pressed about it, the answer gets muddier. We're working on it. We're constrained by international agreements. There's no simple fix. Well, tell that to the victims. Tell that to the parents standing outside Parliament with photos of their children, demanding justice that never came. And here's the part that really stings. When people try to speak out about this, when whistleblowers, journalists, or even ordinary citizens raise the alarm, they are often shut down, branded as xenophobic, accused of spreading hate, censored on platforms, labeled dangerous for simply stating what's already happening. That's how far this has gone. We're not just dealing with a criminal crisis. We're dealing with a narrative control crisis. The facts are there. The rise in sex offenses, quantifiable. The number of foreign offenders walking free, documented. The early release programs, publicly available information. But the moment those facts become politically inconvenient, the spin machine kicks in. That's why people are turning to independent media. That's why this very conversation exists. Because the public no longer trusts the institutions built to inform or protect them. And what's even more disturbing, the longer this continues, the more the country feels like it's dividing into two versions of reality. One version is what government officials keep selling, with tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now. It's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles the mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting. Everything's under control, tolerance is strength, multiculturalism is working, and we just need to be a little more patient. The other version, it's what the public is living every day. Closed police stations, girls being told not to walk home alone, communities being warned not to provoke tension by talking about who's actually committing the crimes. It's like being gaslit at the national level. And let's talk about the police, not the officers themselves. Most of them are just as frustrated as the public. But the system they are trapped in, it's a mess. Underfunded, overregulated, and terrified of political backlash. They can't act without being accused of discrimination, and they can't speak freely without risking their careers. So what's left? Passive enforcement, strategic blindness, and entire towns where law enforcement has all but vanished. And when police do act, when they do step in, it's usually after the fact, after someone's been attacked, after another protest, after another life ruined. It's reactive, not preventative. And everyone knows it. This is why you're seeing vigilante behavior starting to creep into headlines. Neighborhood patrols, underground self-defense classes, illegal tools being sold in Telegram groups. It's not just paranoia, it's desperation. Because if the state won't protect you, you're going to find a way to protect yourself. This isn't the Britain people recognize. And frankly, a lot of citizens don't feel like they belong in this version of it anymore. They don't recognize the values. They don't recognize the priorities. What they do recognize is a growing double standard. British citizens are getting fined, arrested, even jailed for things like posting offensive tweets or defending themselves during home invasions. Meanwhile, foreign offenders with serious convictions are being shielded by layers of bureaucracy, released early, sometimes not even charged. And then there's the media silence. Or maybe not silence, but deflection. Stories get buried. Details get redacted. Entire crimes go underreported if they don't fit the preferred narrative. The demographic details, often omitted completely, even when they are highly relevant. So let's ask the obvious question. Why? Is it fear of backlash? Fear of being labeled? Or is it something deeper, like protecting the illusion that the current policy direction is working even when it's very clearly not? And if you think this is just a short-term spike, think again. The consequences are long-term and structural. We're not just dealing with criminals. I know things feel really heavy in the UK right now. There's a lot of division and noise on the streets, but I want this channel to be a place where we can come together. If you want to be part of a supportive community, please subscribe and like this video to show some love to everyone feeling anxious about the state of things right now. Stay safe out there, everyone. We're dealing with a broken system that allows them to thrive, that refuses to correct itself, that doubles down, no matter how loud the alarms get. And now, more and more people are connecting the dots. They are realizing this isn't accidental, that these aren't just unfortunate byproducts of good intentions, that there's an agenda driving all of this. Call it demographic engineering, call it political strategy, call it what you want. The result is the same: chaos on the ground, safety out the window, and a public increasingly on edge. So what happens now? Do we continue to pretend this is normal? That every 7 minutes, another assault is just a statistic? That 40,000 predators on the street is just part of modern life? Or do people finally stand up and demand change? The clock's ticking, and not just in the metaphorical sense. With every passing hour, another family is affected, another community loses faith, another protest gets ignored. At some point, the system either bends or it breaks. And right now, it's dangerously close to the latter. If this strikes a nerve with you, if you're watching and thinking, this is not the country I want to raise my kids in, you're not alone. Thousands of people across the UK are saying the same thing. But awareness isn't enough anymore. This needs action, reform, accountability, and a complete reset in priorities. Because right now, the government seems more interested in protecting its image than protecting its citizens. And that's not just political failure. That's moral collapse. We'll keep covering this story. We'll keep tracking the protests, the policy failures, the fallout. But we want to hear from you. Is the government doing enough to protect its citizens? Or has safety been sacrificed for ideology? The silence from Downing Street isn't just disappointing, it's dangerous. When communities are left to fend for themselves, when victims feel ignored, and when predators walk free because of red tape and legal loopholes, what exactly are we supposed to believe? That this is just part of progress? That we should wait for the next press conference when nothing is said and even less is done? Because that's all we're getting. Carefully worded statements, empty reassurances, bureaucratic delays, and behind it all, a population that's rapidly losing patience. Let's be brutally honest here. What kind of leadership watches crime surge, sees families protesting in the streets, reads reports of assaults every 7 minutes, and still refuses to admit something's fundamentally broken? And no, this isn't about you've seen the headlines, but the atmosphere down here is completely different. Subscribe so you don't miss the raw footage I'm releasing later this week, and like this video to help push this unfiltered reporting up the algorithm, demonizing immigrants. It's about acknowledging the reality that some of the people being let in without vetting, without background checks, without accountability, are doing irreversible harm. And the system is enabling it, over and over again. The media doesn't want to talk about that. The government definitely doesn't want to talk about that. But the public is screaming about it. From Manchester to London, Liverpool to Birmingham, there are parents who don't let their daughters take the bus anymore. There are women who carry keys between their fingers when walking at night. And now, there are entire neighborhoods that have created their own patrols because they no longer trust the police to show up. Let that sink in. We're not talking about rural backwaters with one constable on duty. We're talking about major British cities where people feel safer relying on Facebook groups than on law enforcement. And this isn't happening in isolation. It's spreading. Fast. Why? Because the government's refusal to act decisively or even admit the scale of the crisis has created a vacuum. And where there's a vacuum, people fill it. Sometimes with hope, sometimes with fury. Right now, it's a lot more of the latter. And the more this continues, the more we see the two-tiered justice system in plain view. You steal a chocolate bar in a Tesco, you're in handcuffs before you hit the exit. But you assault someone, if you're a foreign offender, there's a good chance you'll be released early. Maybe never even charged, especially if your case is caught in the tangled mess of human rights obligations, lack of documentation, or fear of deportation challenges. And let's not forget the reports that British citizens face stricter penalties for self-defense than criminals do for the actual attacks. You defend yourself in your own home, you might be arrested. Your attacker might get free legal aid, a hotel stay, and a press statement defending their right to a fair trial. People are watching this unfold and thinking, what country is this? This is where we're at. The social contract? Shattered. The idea that you pay taxes, obey laws, and in return, the government protects your safety. That's out the window. It's being replaced by political calculation, by policies that, as critics argue, are less about helping the vulnerable and more about shaping future elections. Let's go back to the SDS-40 scheme, because this is where a lot of the outrage stems from. According to multiple critics, this policy isn't just immigration, it's a strategic importation of future voters. A plan designed not around security or integration, but around demographic shifts that favor one political party over the others. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is what people across the political spectrum are openly saying. The numbers don't lie. The consequences are playing out in real time. And the trust that held this entire system together? Evaporating by the day. You don't get social cohesion by ignoring people's concerns. You don't build a safer society by pretending everything is fine while schools, parks, and town centers become hotspots of crime. And here's the thing no politician wants to admit. People don't feel safe anymore. They feel exposed, abandoned, betrayed. They see billions spent on housing and legal support for undocumented migrants, but barely enough to keep local police stations open. They see new arrivals given priority access to services while locals wait months for healthcare appointments, council housing, or social support. They see elected officials who talk endlessly about inclusion and diversity, but fall silent when actual British citizens are hurt by the consequences of these policies. And again, it comes down to intent. Because if this was just a failure of competence, if it was just a series of mistakes, there might still be some hope. But the chilling part is this. People don't believe it's a mistake anymore. They believe it's deliberate. That the erosion of sovereignty, the collapse of accountability, the weaponization of tolerance, it's all being carefully orchestrated. For control, for optics, for power. And if that's true, then what we're dealing with isn't just a crisis. It's an engineered collapse. The kind of collapse that makes people give up on the idea of a nation that protects its own. That makes them question whether voting even matters, whether the laws are meant for them or just against them. Because how else do you explain this level of systemic negligence? You can't call it democracy when the public is this angry, this afraid, and this unheard. You can't call it justice when some offenders are protected more than the victims. You can't call it leadership when every red flag is met with silence, spin, or smug indifference. So where does that leave us? A country once known for its rule of law, now teetering on the edge of lawlessness. A public once proud of its values, now wondering what those values even are. A government once elected to serve the people, now accused of serving only itself. And let's be real, this isn't going away. It's not a media moment or a temporary surge in concern. It's a reckoning, one that will define the next election, one that will shape the future of national identity. One that has already cost lives, communities, and faith in every pillar of authority. People want justice. They want transparency. They want safety. And they are not going to stop asking for it. So if you're watching this and thinking, I don't recognize this country anymore, you're not alone. You're part of a growing majority who sees the chaos and demands better. Not next year. Not after another scandal. Not after another victim. Now. And no. The story isn't over. Not even close. Because while politicians debate behind podiums and issue the same copy-pasted statements, the situation outside keeps getting worse. And the worst part? Everyone sees it. Everyone feels it. You step outside and the tension is palpable. You hear it in hushed conversations at school gates, in quiet murmurs at bus stops, in group chats where people send warnings, not memes. Women exchanging safety apps. Parents sharing updates on which routes to avoid after dark. People coordinating around crimes that aren't being reported, but never prosecuted. And yet, when you turn on the news, crickets, maybe a vague reference to antisocial behavior or community tensions. But never the full picture. Never the raw, brutal reality of what's happening on Britain's streets. The disconnect between the people and those in power isn't just growing, it's become a canyon. You've got an entire political class pretending things are under control, while the public is screaming from the rooftops that they are not. And when that scream gets loud enough to break through, the response is always the same. Downplay, deflect, deny. Oh, crime's actually down statistically. We must be careful not to generalize. Only a small percentage are responsible. Sure, but here's the problem. When that small percentage is allowed to walk free, unvetted, protected by legal barriers that prioritize their comfort over the safety of citizens, that small percentage becomes the only thing anyone notices. And people are tired of being told that noticing makes them the problem. Because the moment you bring up the actual data, like the reported 62% increase in sex offenses committed by foreigners, the conversation gets shut down. You're called inflammatory. You're told to stop spreading fear. But is it fear-mongering if it's true? If it's backed by real numbers? If it's what people are living every single day? That's not fear-mongering. That's called paying attention. And people are paying attention. In fact, the only reason this story has gained traction at all is because everyday citizens are refusing to be gaslit into silence. You've got parents organizing protests, citizens demanding data transparency, victims going public, even when it puts them at risk, just to get someone to care. That's where we're at. People putting their trauma on display because no one else will speak up. And what do they get in return? Blank stares, political jargon, another round of we're reviewing the process while offenders continue to walk free and neighborhoods keep descending into fear. There's no comfort in numbers when 41,923 predators are reportedly on the streets. Let that sink in again. 41,923. That's not a statistic. That's a warning siren. That's a red flag so big it should be flying over Parliament. And yet, it's met with silence. It raises a chilling question. What would it take for the people in charge to actually act? How many more victims? How many more protests? How many more communities living under quiet, simmering panic before someone steps up and says, "This is not okay. This ends now." Because from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like safety is even on the agenda. What is on the agenda? Policy spin, managing appearances, making sure no one gets offended. Except, apparently, the citizens footing the bill for all this chaos. Let's talk about those citizens for a second. The ones watching their taxes go to housing alleged offenders in three-star hotels. The ones who have to make police reports just to get a crime number for insurance purposes, because they know nothing will come of it. And it's not just about crime anymore. It's about this creeping, sickening feeling that the people in charge don't care, that they're actively avoiding the truth, that they're using international legal frameworks not to uphold justice, but to escape responsibility. Oh, we can't deport them. The courts won't allow it. Oh, we're obligated under international law. Oh, it's complex. No. What's complex is trying to explain to your child why the man who attacked someone in your town center last week is still roaming free. What's complex is trying to figure out how to protect your family when the state has tied your hands behind your back. What's not complex? The concept of accountability. And that's what's missing here. Total accountability failure. The kind of failure that isn't just inconvenient. It's life-altering, community-breaking, national identity-erasing. Because when the justice system fails spectacularly, it doesn't just affect individuals. It changes a culture. It sends a message. And that message is loud and clear. You're on your own. So that's what people are doing. Going it alone. Setting up neighborhood watches. Buying illegal self-defense tools. Relying on underground networks because a legitimate system won't help them. And yes, that's illegal. But what choice do they have? What would you do if you knew calling 999 wouldn't make a difference? If you knew the police wouldn't show up until hours later? If at all? If you knew your attacker, if court, might be out before you even get your medical results back? What do you do then? That's not just a breakdown of order. That's the beginning of something far more dangerous, a society where people no longer believe in the institutions that hold it together. And once that trust is gone, you don't get it back with speeches. You don't fix it with hashtags or diversity campaigns or lessons learned press releases. You rebuild it with action, with arrests, with deportations, with policies that put citizens first. But right now, the perception, and let's be honest, the reality is that political correctness is being weaponized as a shield, not for the vulnerable, not for the innocent, but for the guilty, for those who exploit loopholes, who game the system, who harm others and are then wrapped in layers of legal protection because confronting the truth is too uncomfortable for the establishment. And that brings us full circle. Back to the protests, back to the signs, back to the chants of protect our kids, not your careers. This isn't a culture war. It's not about racism or xenophobia. It's about basic human safety. It's about whether or not a government should have the right to call itself a democracy while letting its citizens suffer for the sake of optics. So here's the question again, louder this time. When does it stop? Because if these numbers are real, if these policies continue, and if this silence persists, then we're not just dealing with a national security crisis. We're staring down the collapse of something much deeper. Trust. The trust that says if someone hurts you, they'll face consequences. The trust that says your leaders care more about your life than their political survival. The trust that says your country still belongs to you. And once that's gone, you don't get it back with damage control. You only get it back by admitting the truth and doing what's necessary to fix it. But until that happens, the message to every citizen is the same. Stay vigilant. Stay vocal. And don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, because clearly no one in power will. And the more you watch this unfold, the clearer it becomes. They are hoping you'll give up. They want you to get tired, to scroll past it, to stop believing that chaos is normal, that what's happening is too complicated, too messy, too above your pay grade to fix. But it's not. This isn't about complicated geopolitical strategy or nuanced immigration frameworks. This is about one thing, the state refusing to protect its own people. And that refusal, it's not an accident. Because if the government really wanted to stop this, they could. If they wanted to vet migrants properly, they could. If they wanted to deport known criminals, they could. If they wanted to pass emergency legislation to protect women, children, and vulnerable communities, they could. But they don't. And that's the real crisis. Every time someone says, well, our hands are tied, what they really mean is, we'd rather protect our careers and protect your family. So you're left with communities filling the void, people doing the jobs of politicians, of police, of journalists, ordinary citizens taking on extraordinary burdens, just to survive in a country that treats their safety as optional. And let's be clear, this isn't sustainable. It's not noble. It's terrifying. Because when the public loses faith in the very systems designed to keep order, they don't just disengage. They revolt. Not with violence. Not yet. But with deep, burning mistrust. With contempt. With a sense of alienation so strong that even flying a national flag feels political. This is what happens when a nation forgets its duty. When those at the top stop serving the people and start serving themselves. And every day this continues, every assault ignored, every criminal shielded by policy, is another brick pulled out of the foundation. Another step closer to a country no one recognizes anymore. So if you're watching this thinking, this feels like the start of something bad, you're not paranoid. You're paying attention. And if you're thinking, someone needs to do something, maybe that someone is you, maybe it's us. Speaking out, staying informed, demanding answers, holding every official accountable until they remember who they work for. Because this story, it doesn't end here. Not until safety is restored. Not until the truth is heard. So speak up. Comment below. What's the reality in your town? Are people finally waking up? Or are we still pretending it's fine? Like this video if you think enough is enough. Share it if someone you know needs to see what's really going on. And don't forget to subscribe, because we'll be following this all the way through until someone finally decides to take responsibility. We're not looking away. Neither should you.